All right, welcome to another episode of the Millionaire Secrets Show. Excited to be back with you. We're in the Zoom studio today with a new acquaintance of mine, someone who I'm really excited to get to know much better. Seems like a fascinating human being and entrepreneur, one of my favorite types of people, great entrepreneurs. This is John Lee. He's the CEO and founder of Wealth Dragons, which I love the name. I can't wait to hear more about. Best-selling author of The Wealth Dragon Way. Real estate investor, international speaker, best-selling author, all kinds of credentials, and does a lot of business online, which I'm fascinated to hear about. So without further ado, let's welcome John Lee.
Hey man, thanks for having me on the show, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I'm glad you're here. I've been stalking you now through social media for several days, in that creepy way that we all do nowadays, and I just love what I see. I'm excited to get to know you. A lot of times I'm bringing old friends and people I've had relationships with for a long time on the show, and in this case, I'm excited to really make a new friend and get to know you better, just like my audience. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. And thanks for pushing out the work to really educate the next generation of entrepreneurs on what it really takes to become a successful entrepreneur.
Well, what it really takes, that's a big mouthful statement there, right? And I love, here's what I love, because I think it seems like you're doing a lot the same thing, is that you're out there talking about like what it really takes. And it's really hard. And I think, for two guys that do a lot of business online, I'm sure we can relate around how annoying and frustrating it is that the internet is so constantly making it sound easy, or trying to make it, sell it as a business in a box, or a pop-up success kind of thing. And it's just not. It's hard. So do you mind taking me back? I read here in your bio that you were born, your parents ran a takeout restaurant in Northern England. I assume you didn't grow up with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. Yep.
And maybe didn't grow up with, sounds like your parents were entrepreneur. I mean, that I assume is a form of entrepreneurship, running a restaurant, but probably not, steering you in the direction that you've gone with, taking risk and going online and doing all this crazy stuff. So how did that happen for you? Do you mind taking me back?
Yeah, I grew up in the north of England, a place called Quorn, which is near Burnley. For anyone that isn't from the UK, you've probably never heard of it. It's like a place in the middle of nowhere. Right. And I, like all, Chinese kids, and growing up in my era, we all work in a Chinese takeaway. We, chop mushrooms, we peel onions, and we peel prawns, and we do dishwashing and wok washing. And, that kind of became my life. And, for a long time, I thought to myself, there's got to be a better way. Like, I didn't really see my parents at the age of like 11 years old, because they were just working all the time. In fact, it was my uncles and aunties that actually brought me up, because my parents would be working all the time, and I'd go down there at the weekends, and I'd be, helping out, so to speak, or kind of like forced to work. That kind of became my life. So that's how I kind of started and sort of get this fuel, that I think that first thought of, I've got to get out of this. Because, for a long time, I couldn't go to my friends' parties. On weekends, I'd have to work when I should be at my friends' parties. And I felt I missed a lot out on, the childhood. So in my mind, I was like, I don't want to work here anymore. Like, I got to do something else. I've got to do something, but I just didn't know what that thing was.
So when did that transition from a thought to an action, and what was that first action?
My parents then suggested I should go to college and university, in which I did. I got a degree and I'm not academically bright. I didn't do very well at school. So the only thing I was good at was drawing and creative stuff. So I became an animator. Yeah, and I was on a pretty decent salary, and it's kind of and the thoughts of doing something different. I thought I'd kind of broken out of this, because my parents don't know this. I don't think I've ever said this on any podcast out of all the podcasts I've ever done. But one of the reasons why I want to go to university is so I wouldn't have to work at my parents' Chinese takeaway at the weekend.
Right.
because, it had to be far enough that I couldn't have to come back every weekend. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't go to Manchester University, because I didn't want to go back to work weekends. I wanted to have my own life. And so at university, I kind of did that, going out partying. And then I obviously graduated, I got a job. And then a second wave hit. It's like, oh my God, now I don't be working in the job for somebody else. And I kept working and working. And I actually loved my job. But what I hated around it, Jeff, was this whole context of having to go to work every day, having to wake up every day, having to answer to a boss. And even though I loved my work, I didn't really have a life there either, because I'd be working every day, weekends, late nights. When you're working in the film industry, you're called upon the last hour, and you have to, get things done because they have budgets. So that was kind of my trigger point, where I thought to myself, you know what, this is not life. We're kind of like existing. We're not living.
It's interesting because I feel 100% the same way. I had one job when I was 16 years old, and I managed to, semi-intentionally get myself fired after 3 weeks, and I never had another job since. I had that same reaction that you're describing of like, I don't want to be owned. I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be directed and what felt like manipulated all the time. I don't want to be a cog in a machine. And yet most people, I think most people maybe at least wouldn't want to say out loud, well, I don't have a life. I'm just existing. But that was your response to having a job from the get-go. That was my response to having a job from the get-go. But most people, they seem to have made peace with it. I'm curious, what do you think it is about these, malcontent people like us that just rebel at our very soul level against having a job? Because there's a few of us, right? I mean, what is it? What is it?
Well, I think it's when you understand why you exist, and when you understand, sometimes you have this calling on why you need to do things that you do. But I think there's this, I always had this bigger feeling like there's got to be something better. There's got to be something, that's going to, I don't know. I always felt there was something there. And so it was almost like a calling to do this. And the interesting thing is, the day I quit my job to become a full-time entrepreneur, I actually my salary was on £36,000, which is what, $60,000. Yeah. But actually I got a pay rise from that to $60,000, which would have been closer to what, $90,000, which is actually a respectable, salary. So it was not like I was like in a dead end job with no career, with no prospect. It was just like I had everything. And sometimes when you work for something, you get to that point, you go, is that it? I always wanted to be a lead animator on a film. And I worked so many years to get to that. And I finally got it. And then I made a decision. It's like, either I stay in this, get paid more money. And it's actually a lot more money than a lot of my friends were earning. But I was like, but the more I do that, the tighter the chains get around my wrists. Mm-hmm. It's like, so for me, actually, the thing that for me was actually my freedom to be able to do what I wanted. Like all through my life, I've always been told, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Oh, that's not good for you. And I said, no, if I want to do it, I'm going to do it. And so that, I don't know where it comes from, but it's just, maybe it's that rebel as a child.
I think you pinpointed it. There seem to be some people who are wired to value freedom more than security. Mm. I actually have this quote. I'm at my family's house in the country right now. And it's my wife's father's home, her family home. He's passed away. And we come up here sometimes, and he has this quote. He was like us, man. He wanted freedom. That was his primary currency. And he has this sign up in his desk right here that totally unprompted, I'm going to tell you, it's a Ben Franklin quote. It says, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety."
Wow.
Yeah. It's a Ben Franklin quote from prior to the American Revolution. But I feel that way. People trade. We always say, oh, get out of the grind of trading time for money. But it's even bigger than that. It's trading freedom for security. or it's freedom for perceived security. I think if we've learned anything in the world lately, it's that it's an illusion, right?
Right. And so here's the funny thing. I mean, in America, there's over 30 million people that lost their jobs due to this whole craziness that's happening.
Right.
And so that's how people know how vulnerable they are, And this is one of the things that, because you said that you got fired, I also got fired from my job because I was too good at it. One of my first jobs, I was so good at my job that my boss got intimidated and kind of used the bully tactics and politics to push me out of the company, which he eventually did. That's actually another trigger point that happened. I was like, oh my God, if I see him today, I want to walk up to him and thank him so much for doing that. Because if he hadn't have done that, I probably wouldn't be, here right now.
Right.
He actually set me free indirectly.
Yeah, it is. It's everything. That's so much of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, is figuring out how to turn all your failures into forward progress, all your losses into wins. There's always a win to be found. So, okay, so you get fired, you got fired, you got another job, but something happened. You had your Jerry Maguire moment where you said, I'm out. I got to go my own way. What'd you do? What'd you go to?
So my best friend, Dan Rodriguez, he said to me, like, I always complained about my job all the time. It's like the same conversation I had with him. Every lunchtime, we'd go downstairs in the cafeteria. I'd have my sandwich, my ham and salmon sandwich with a coffee or a Coke and some crisps. And we'd always have this conversation. So what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to quit my job. And it never happened for a long time. And then one day on my birthday, he gave me this book. And I read this book, and this book was all about passive income and how you can become you can make money work for you instead of. And I was like, come on, this is sounds like a scam. But the more I started to read, the more my eyes started to open. And when I opened my mind, I was like, you know what? It sounds scammy, but I'm going to try it anyway. So I tried it, and the first thing I got into was real estate. So and I remember walking to this seminar and just having all these people like a cult, I'm like, what the hell's going on here? Like, why are these people so happy? Why are they all shouting and saying yes? And I'm like, okay, maybe this is not for me. But I persisted, and I started listening. And I heard this guy's name was Ranjan Bhattacharya. And he was talking about, I just did this deal and I made £100,000 and I did this deal. And I was like, come on. I was like, and Chinese people were really skeptical.
Yeah.
So as I started to go into that, I started to speak to people. I said, is this guy real? Like, is it fake? Or what's going on? I said, no. I did my first deal as well. And the more I started to speak to people, the more I started to understand. And then at the end of the seminar, he sold this thing called, I think it was called the Property Survivor Kit, something like that. But it was £97 for a book. I'm like, £97 for a book? I can go to Waterstones and buy a book for like £10. But what I didn't understand is that this is different. It's not a storybook; it's an education book. So I bought this, and it was about that thick, and it had this ring binder, and I'd always have it in my backpack every time I traveled to work. And I'd read it, and I'm dyslexic, right? So I found it really hard to read. So I'm reading through this thing over and over and over again, and I start to get these concepts of, okay, buy low, sell high, right? Buy a property and rent it out, make money, and it started to make sense. I'm like, So what you're saying is I could buy a house, and I can rent the house out, and I can make money every single month. And I got that concept. Mm-hmm. And then the next question was, okay, well, I don't have any money to buy a house. How do I buy a house? And so there was, again, some more training that would teach you how to buy a house without having to use your own money. So OPM. So I started attending all these training programs. But to cut a long story short, I ended up having to sell my car because I tried all this stuff. It didn't work. I'm like, what? This thing is right now, how come it's not working? And it was kind of haphazardly working, but not working. It's like when you go to a gym, you're lifting weights, like, well, I don't have big biceps yet. I've been doing bicep curls for like a week, right? But it's something that you form. And then eventually someone said to me, and gave me another book, and he said, if you want to create success in your life, you have to model others. I think it was Tony Robbins, actually. Darren gave me the CD of all the Tony Robbins stuff. I'm like, okay. So then it started to be all hypey and like, oh, come on, this is really American. But anyway, I persisted. I'm like, let's just do it. Because, in the UK, we're very reserved. We don't like, but in the US, it's like everything's like positive and go and get this. And, for being a Brit, I'm like, this is not my style. But anyway, let's try it anyway. So I started doing these affirmations like, I'm successful. And I felt really weird doing it at first. And then the more I did it, the more I started to enjoy it. And then one thing he said in there was like, if you want to achieve something, find somebody who's already got what you want and model what they do, everything they do to the T. And I was like, that sounds pretty easy. So then I started to look out and find a mentor. But guess what? Mentors cost money.
Right.
Right? You can't just walk up to someone and say, hey, mentor me. Why would they? So I ended up asking, I found a guy, his name was Ying Tan. And he was a very successful Malaysian property entrepreneur and investor. And I said to him, would you mentor me? Look, I'm Asian, you're Asian. Come on, do something for an Asian guy. Come on. Do. And he said, John, I will mentor you, but it's going to cost you £10,000. I'm like, £10,000? Are you kidding? I don't even have £2,000. What do you mean £10,000? So it's interesting when you say you don't have money. There's always money there. It's just you've never utilized it for stuff. So then I remember sitting at my kitchen table and just looking at the HUD of my car. At the time I had a Honda S2000 convertible, and I sold the car for £15,000. I take £10,000 of this money and I pay him £10,000 for 2 days of mentoring. Do you know what all my friends were saying to me? Oh, it's a scam. Oh, he's going to rip you off. Oh, why are you wasting your money? Why, like all these like negative things. And I find that the more I get into this industry, the more like your friends try and pull you away from it because they just don't understand. They're trying to protect you.
Right.
So that's how it kind of all started. And I got this mentor. And again, what I understood about mentoring is that they know things that you don't know. That's why they're there and you're where you are right now. And so the more I started to, and then from that session, I ended up buying 35 houses in 6 months. I made my first million at 27. Because he taught me a way to be able to finance deals without having to put money into it. And I thought, wow. And I just kept repeating the process over and over and over and over and over again until they stopped all the loopholes. But by that time, I'd already made my money. I was in and I was out. And then I took that money, I started investing, right? Then I started, doing, and people kept asking me questions about, oh, John, how do you do this property thing? Can you teach me? And I'm like, okay, sure. Then I go for coffee every single day with people. Right. And then they would tell a friend and I go for coffee with them. I was like, this is ridiculous. And so I ended up writing like a little report and I just give it to them. I said, look, I'm too busy. Just read this.
Right.
And little did I understood that this report started to circulate. Right. People started to read it. They contact me. And then someone asked me the question, hey, John, how much will it cost for you to mentor me? And no one ever asked me the question. I said, I don't know. I'll do it for free. So I started doing it for free. And of course, everyone started doing it for free. And what I realized is that when I give it for free, my time, people weren't doing anything with it. So I had to start charging. Then I started charging. Then I wrote a book. And then that's how I became who I am today. That's how I now fly all around the world. And I get paid to speak and do keynote speeches. And I floated a company in the stock exchange. And it all happened from that turning point.
What a story. And now you have, I checked your Facebook. I mean, what, 3 million?
Close to 3 million on Facebook.
3 million on your Facebook. And I'm sure, a global audience, massive impact, millions and millions of people. I mean, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, first of all, let me just tell you, it's amazing and congratulate you on amazing accomplishments. But it speaks to the power of that big decision, selling your car. Yeah. We always tell people like, be resourceful, right? You never have a resources problem. You have a resourcefulness problem.
Correct.
And I wonder, I'm sure you've thought it like, man, what would my life be like if I hadn't sold my car?
Oh God. It's interesting because I'm really into cars. Like when I was a kid, I used to play these like car games, and because I also used to work for a games company as well. So I love Chinese. We always love playing games, right? So I always wanted to own a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. I don't know if it's your era or maybe it's not, or it is. But there's a game called Outrun. Have you ever played the game Outrun?
No, I don't think I have.
Okay, so it's a Sega game, and I used to play it. It's this red Ferrari, so you're always driving around. There's another one that came out called Gran Turismo, and they'd have all these like the supercars. And I always wanted to own one of these cars, but at the time when I sold the car, I had a nice car, and I was like, oh, back then I was like, all very materialistic and buying things just to impress people, and now I know that's complete. It's if you're gonna buy something for you that's gonna enhance yours and other people's lives, and it's going to make you feel happy, not to impress others. And so I remember that was my pride and joy, and I was almost like sacrificing it so I could. And there's this concept called delayed gratification.
Mm-hmm.
I delay something for today for a better tomorrow.
Yeah. And doesn't it, I mean, I'm sure you've worked with or been mentored by or in a mastermind context or, however, I'm sure you're exposed to lots of other really successful people.
Oh yeah.
I know that I am. And doesn't it always seem like there was this moment where you used the word sacrifice? It's almost like a rite of passage for success. There always seems like there has to be this turning point moment, and it's never easy and it's never small. It's always like this momentous thing. For me, it was being, having I defaulted on these restaurants because of the Great Recession. I had, taken all this debt, and I was $500,000 in debt, living on a couch, and it was like I had to hit rock bottom. Some people, they hit rock bottom for life because of life circumstance. Some people almost seems like they have to create their rock bottom. Like for you, selling your car, like you create this floor that you have to, that you can push up against, right? And I don't know why that is. It's like a universal law.
Well, I'll tell you why, because a lot of people are very comfortable, right? The comfort zone is a great place, but nothing ever grows there. Right. You see, Jeff, a lot of people, they would rather, when people smoke, right? It's kind of like, you better stop smoking because it's going to kill you. And they don't stop smoking until they start getting those pains.
Right.
Then they go and see the doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to stop smoking. Otherwise you've got something growing there and you don't want it to carry on growing. So you better stop." It almost feels like it's got to get to that point.
Yeah.
And in Chinese, we call this concept called breaking the boat. If you could if you're stuck in the ocean right now, there's an island there and there's a storm, how are you going to guarantee you're going to get to the island? By breaking your own boat. When you break your boat, you either sink or swim.
Right.
You got no choice.
Oh, I love that, man. There's always that one takeaway. I'm sure there'll be many in this conversation, but if I retain nothing other than breaking the boat, my friend, I want to spend the rest of my life going around. Yeah, my friend John Lee told me about this Asian concept of breaking the boat. That just sounds so powerful. Okay, so you broke your own boat. You started turning houses. You started publishing. You know what I love is that. Would you say now that you're in the real estate business or the education business? Are you in both? Like, are you active in both still?
Well, yeah. I do still buy real estate.
Mm-hmm.
I got an education company. I have online businesses, and now I have a tech company as well. So we just launched a software that will help anybody create their own membership sites in a few clicks. So now people can now monetize their knowledge, skills, and expertise just from what they know. So if you're a singer, you're a dancer, you're a coach or a speaker or an author, you got some knowledge that you want to monetize. It just helps people in a few clicks. You've now got something the way you can make money every single month.
First of all, that's fantastic. I personally, selfishly like to learn more about that, and also potentially have you share more about that. So at this point, do you ever go home? Do you ever see your old crew from, call it your old life or your original life? And I'm curious.
Every Christmas. Every Christmas.
Yeah.
I go home and I see it's like going back in time. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God, the guy who I saw here like 10 years ago, he's still here. He's still doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that some people are a lot more ambitious. Some people are happy to stay where they are. Some people are not. Me, I don't want to stay in one place. I always want to be moving forward, but I do see a lot of my old friends and family where I grew up, and I go back and it feels like a time warp.
Huh. Yeah. I've experienced that. I grew up in Houston, Texas, and Houston's it's a happening, thriving, progressive city. It's not like it's stuck in time, but when I go back there, it's like I'm re-exposed to a version of myself that I feel so evolved away from now. It has that surreal quality that I think you're describing. So, what do you say now when somebody comes up and they're like, hey John, I really because I'm asking because I'm looking for coaching here again,
Yeah.
selfishly, because I get hit up all the time now on social media. You know, in the last couple of years, I've started putting a lot of content out, just, you know, free educational value that I give away. And so and I'm excited. I love that it seems to be reaching, frankly, more young people than I ever really expected. Because I'm 41. I think of myself like I'm the old guy now. But a lot of, you know, I get hit up from people that are like, I'm 12, I'm 14. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do my own thing, but my parents don't support me. They don't get it. They just want me to go to college and get a job and You know, and they say, what do you think I should do? So I'm curious, what do you say to people who are like, what is in the modern world, where's the place to start for people that maybe don't have a lot of resources?
Do you know, I get this a lot as well. Like people say, yeah, it's okay for you, John. You're already a millionaire. You can go and buy houses and buy businesses and all this kind of stuff. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Right.
But there are different ways to do it. Like you said, it's about being resourceful. But if you ask me right now, if I started now, I would not have done what I did 10 years ago now because times have changed, right? Different context. You know, for example, right now, you would never start a video store with a VHS because no one watches VHSs, right? So, but back then it was hot. So you got to look at what's hot now. And so there's a really good book, actually. And anyone listening to this podcast needs to read this book. It's called The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And it talks about whenever you want to, I mean, it's a book about warfare, but you can apply it to business. And there's always really the timing, the conditions, and the trend. So what is the timing right now? Timing right now, everyone's locked at home. What are they doing? They're online, right? So that's the timing. What's the trend? The trend is, well, everybody has one of these mobile phone things, right? So that's the trend. What are the conditions? The conditions now is people are losing their jobs and they can't even get a new job because of, you know, current craziness that's happening right now. So what can they do? Well, if you take all these things on board, then this is why I see the rise of the digital entrepreneur, right? A digital entrepreneur is somebody who starts an online business and monetizes in three ways. One, by selling products, right? So you can be a physical product. Like I can sell, clickers now for people who want to become speakers. I can sell calculators or microphones, right? So you can sell something physical, or you can sell something digital, which is what I do a lot of. So I have a lot of digital training programs. I have a lot of digital coaching, right? Or you can sell services. So if you're service-based, let's say you do coaching, like I do a lot of mentoring people. We actually have a program called the digital entrepreneur mentoring.com, right? That's a program that people join and they learn to become a digital entrepreneur. So the whole idea of this is you want to take one of those three things, and the new one that's coming right now, the trend that's coming is sponsorship monetization. So you see a lot of influencers doing this right now who get paid to make a post, who get paid to do a sponsored piece of branded content. So that's the fourth thing that I see coming in. So, and the reason why I say digital entrepreneurship, that is because it's the one that is the lowest cost and the lowest time to start. It's not like if you have a restaurant, you got to, buy a restaurant, you got to furnish it out, you got to put the kitchen in, you got to get a chef and get a waiter and all that. It costs a lot of time and money. With digital entrepreneurship, I can start in the next 24 hours with almost zero cost.
Yeah, I can speak personally to the cost of owning a restaurant. That just about sunk my ship. That broke my boat beyond repair. And when I was 28 years old, that was my rock bottom, was a couple franchise restaurants that they never should have given me the loans for in the first place, because I was a 27-year-old jazz musician with no experience. But money was crazy back then. And that's how I got started. Was I lost these restaurants. I opened them on the tail end of an economic boom. They were giving out, money to unqualified people. I opened them right at the tail end, and then I tried to operate them into the beginning of a massive recession, and they fell off a cliff. And yes, my point being, I can give you the economics. This was 2008. I had to sell $40,000 worth of little pita sandwiches, that average maybe $5 or $6. So that's what, 8,000 or 9,000 sandwiches a month. Just to break even across two small stores. I mean, there's a total of maybe 2,000 square feet of real estate.
Yeah.
That's 9,000 people I have to serve lunch to across to just operate 2,000 square feet of real estate.
Yeah.
That's insane when you think about those numbers. I mean, now if you do 9,000 customers a month in an online business at like 45, 50% profit margin.
Yeah.
And the difference was I had to sell 9,000 just to get to break even. I didn't make any money, and I only made money on 9,001.
Right.
And so when the recession happened, it's like, oh, we only sold 7,000 sandwiches this month. Oh, well, too bad. You're out of business, and you're going to spend the next year of your life fighting with lawyers and trying to figure out how to pay off $500,000. Like, it was a disaster. And yet I see people, if you go to conventions or expos on how to start a business, or, they have these conferences in the US, I assume they have them in the UK too, about how to start a business or how to become an entrepreneur. It's mostly brick and mortar businesses. I mean, admittedly, over the last few months because of COVID, I'm sure those haven't been happening, but generally it's still brick and mortar business is like the thing. Do you feel that digital business has fully entered the mainstream? And I'm asking because I know when I started, I remember telling somebody, I went back to see an old friend, and he's like, so what are you doing now? And I said, and I was all excited because I had actually started making some money. I was like, yeah, I'm becoming an internet marketer. Yeah. And the look around the entire table, there were like 7 other people at the table. It was like I had just said that I'm selling timeshares. I mean, it was horrible. I felt so judged. Yeah. And I'm curious if you still think it's that way, or has it become like a mainstream?
Well, there are different versions of a digital entrepreneur. Let me give you a classic example. This is something that happened recently. Mm-hmm. So I do a lot. I mean, I wrote a lot of books, and the books. I do these book tours. So I fly around the world, and that's Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Dubai, Europe, and I fly around and I give these talks. But obviously with what's happened recently, all my events got postponed or cancelled. Right. So which means I cannot, like, every time I have an event, I'll have maybe 500 to 1,000 people. There was one event I was supposed to have in Melbourne with 4,000 people. I was doing a keynote there. But every time I'd speak, my keynote fee is £55,000 to speak. And that's what I get paid for speaking. Mm-hmm. So you imagine all these just start shutting down, then your speaking revenue stops. I'm like, okay. Right. I mean, lucky for me, I have other different businesses. I mean, if I just solely relied on that, I'd be panicking right now. So then I thought to myself, okay, so what's changed? The thing that's changed is actually physically seeing people face to face. And I'm so glad this happened. This is one of those things. And I had an interview earlier this morning with another one of my buddies, and he was saying the same thing to me. And I'm so glad this has happened, because now this COVID broke the boat for everybody. Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. So now what do? I do virtual events now, right? So what would take me 3 months to get 1,000 people to show up to an event, I can do in a week. Mm-hmm. The revenue that would be generated. You think about when you put an event on. So let's say you put an event on with 1,000 people, you have to hire the hotel, which normally costs 10 to 20,000 a day. My events are 3 days long, right? So that's already what you're looking at, 60 grand just with that venue. I mean, that's the rate card. Right. And then you've got the EV, which is 10 grand a day. That's another 30 grand on top. Then you've got your whole entourage, your crew that you've got to put up in hotels, which are £200 a night for 3 nights. Yeah. And your security, then all your smoke machines and all the beautiful lighting and all that kind of stuff. You spend 150 grand before you can even blink. Now I can do the same event right here from my home. And during the break times, I can go downstairs and have, dinner and lunch with my wife and my daughter. And I can come back up and I can deliver the presentation. It's insane. Yeah. Like the profit margin on what I used to do back then to now is like probably 3 times the profit. Yeah. With less work because of the digital age.
Yeah. I've obviously been, in a different way, but similar dynamic. I've been embracing the virtual delivery model, just internally in my company, Antra. Everything. We actually were planning to have a big event this year, and obviously scrapping that plan. You like you said, it's almost there's this gratitude of like, we didn't know what we were missing. Right. We thought we had to do it this other way, and now we have this gift. I got on a call yesterday with a guy who just in the last year, he started, his timing was great. He started a virtual sales process outsourcing company. So instead of companies having to build and manage their own sales infrastructure, they just hire him and his team does it. And he got on and he's like, man, am I the only one who's kind of almost feeling guilty right now because of how well we're doing in the world? And I feel like, when did you get started speaking the message of like what's possible in the world, the new economy?
10 years ago.
10?
Well, I started becoming a speaker 10 years. I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years.
Okay.
But it was 10 years ago. Well, that's when I did my first speaking gigs. But it was only the last 3 months where I started turning everything digital or virtual.
Yeah. Well, so that's what I told him. And I guess, I'll say the same for all of us. Like, we've been out there preaching the message for 10 years. I've been, I started in 2008. Since 2008, 13 years now, I've been telling people like the world has changed and there's this new possibility. And I sit at a table and say that I'm an internet marketer and everyone at the table judges me, but I could judge them right back and be like, well, you guys are the dumb ones that still think you have to. I mean, it's not a fight. It's not like you want to put people down, but like you haven't had to actually commute to a job for the last 10 years. You just weren't listening.
Yeah.
And so I think in a way it's very powerful what COVID has done to the world, because there's going to be a lot of people, I don't think they want to go back to work.
Well, I mean, now, you've got the kids who are going to school virtually now.
Yeah.
Now the parents are thinking, why am I paying all this money to have my kids go to school? And all these people, that's why, that's one of the reasons why we created, the digital entrepreneur mentoring program, is because people now want to know, well, how do I package my knowledge, skills, and expertise to push out there? Like, so there's four things, if anyone's listening to this, 4 things you need to learn. Number 1 is, what do you want to monetize? What knowledge, what skills, what expertise? And then, okay, how do you create the content? How do you film the videos? How do you put the message out there? Number 3 is, how do we set the actual, online business up where you can start collecting money for what you already know? And the last part is, how do you market it? How do you push it out there and market that your I guess online school, so people can pay money to learn from you? And so this is the whole concept. I've seen something growing right now, and this is going to be the next evolution. I call it the digital revolution that's happening.
Yeah. So when I started, I've done what you're describing with my company Antra back in 2017. I started working on putting trainings together and courses and building a membership site and all the stuff that we both know goes into it. And that conversation, that decision for me to go in that direction came on the heels of a conversation that I had with a guy that I was put in touch with, who was one of the first, I think he was like employee number 8 at Microsoft, first like founding group at Microsoft, came up, managed a $10 billion division at Microsoft. I mean, just his division was basically its own Fortune 500 company within Microsoft, right? And, huge guy, talks to Bill Gates once a week, like just a giant perspective, right? I mean, this guy sees huge amounts of information and data and trends, and has access to all kinds of analysts. Anyway, I was put in touch with him back in 2016 when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. What did I want my next direction to be? And he told me, he said, if there's anything that's ready to be disrupted right now, it's education. The education industry, it's just in the US, it's a $500 billion industry. And it's horribly broken. People spending all this money to go to these iconic institutions with these brick buildings and these, just the budget to maintain the landscaping at some of these schools is like 10 million, 20 million a year. It doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't need to go do that to learn anymore. And I think that what we're seeing now is just an acceleration of this massive disruption that was already happening. Essentially, I think over whether it's 50 or 100 years, we're going to dismantle the traditional education system. Yeah, because it's so top heavy. And I love that you're teaching people about that, because it's true. It's like, I mean, just know you have a fan. Like, I'm part of your chorus, man. It is so true. I think what we're really doing is saving people. I mean, ultimately, think about what student debt does to most careers in their 20s and 30s. Mm-hmm. Did you graduate with student debt?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And in your 20s, how long did it take you to pay that off?
About 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. And would you say that it was crippling during that time?
Yeah, because of like all this money I was working hard for, and then a big portion that would be taken away.
And was that just, were you able to get a job with an undergraduate degree, or did you also have to do a master's?
No, I had to. So here's the thing. I actually got hired before I even graduated, because I was so dedicated to my craft that every day I'd be like animating, I'd be practicing, I'd be going to festivals. So I actually got a job before I even graduated. So actually, I didn't even need that degree.
Okay. Huh.
Actually, I didn't even need that degree. I just got it because my parents wanted me to get a degree. So I made them happy.
Yeah. Well, that's so funny, man. The reason I got my degree to make my she's now my ex-wife, but I did it to make her parents happy, to like be good enough for their daughter, Yeah. And nobody's ever asked to see it in my life. Right. In fact, I think it's actually, I wonder if I even still have it. I don't think I've ever actually taken it out of the tube that they gave it to me in. I probably have it somewhere. I see it every now and then. It's like this red tube that I see laying around. That's hilarious. So, okay. So what do you say to the person who's like, again, maybe a really young person who says, well, okay, but I don't really have any expertise yet, or I don't have anything to monetize it, in the knowledge business. Is there something else I could start with where maybe I don't have to produce or create anything?
Let me tell you a quick story. So a friend of mine told me the story, and his name is Vince. And he said to me, bro, do you know one of my students? He loves to play the piano, but he doesn't know how to play the piano. So you know what he did? He took these strategies that we're talking about right now, and he went to a piano teacher and he said, hey, can I just pay you $1,000 and then you just play the piano? And he did, and he got her to sign a piece of paper. So at the time there was these DVDs, and he took this DVD and he created a one-page website with this DVD that you could buy for $97. And this DVD was called How to Play Piano by Ears. It's not even by him. It's by somebody else. So he had the creativity to go to somebody else and to monetize somebody else's knowledge. That one website did 1.2 million. Just with somebody else's expertise. And so this is why it's not always about your skill set that's the key. It's the mindset that's the key. Right? It's your mindset. You have skill set, you have mindset. The mindset is being able to see the opportunity, like, oh my God, I can go to that person who's got skills, and I can find the other people who want to learn piano and put them together and sell them the solution.
I love that story. There's a great video on YouTube, and I'm trying to find it right now. Yeah. And and it's called 7 Leverage Tools the Rich Use to Make Money. Okay. And it's on YouTube. People can go look it up. And I'm trying to remember what the 7. But anyway, if you go on YouTube and you type in 7 types of leverage, it comes up. It's by the Better Men Project is the name of the creator. But I'm not going to look it up right now. But I want to say it's like other people's work, other people's money, other people's knowledge, other people's network, other people's resources. I forget what the 7 are, but it's pretty eye-opening. I actually use it as part of a training that I put together. When you realize rich people, successful people, prosperous people, whatever you want to call them. Some people don't like the terms rich and poor, but whatever.
Yeah.
They're actually, in some way, they're lazy.
Yeah.
Right? And even Bill Gates has a really famous quote. Well, I say famous. I don't know. I like it. Where he's like, if I need to get a job done, I'm going to find a lazy person to do that job, because he's going to do it for me the fastest and cheapest way. This concept of like ambitious laziness, where I assume if you're like me and like a lot of successful people I know, it's always just like, okay, what's the fastest way to get to the minimum viable version of this that's still quality, with me having to exhaust as few resources as possible.
Yeah.
right?
That's leverage. The concept of leverage.
Leverage. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I see so many people toiling in low leverage situations, and they're trying to get out of low leverage situations, not by acquiring more leverage, but by just doing more work.
Mm.
And I certainly, I mean, you try to introduce that concept. How do you explain leverage to a person that doesn't have any?
Well, you got to find people. Let me give you an example. So again, when I first started in real estate, I also used somebody else's money. So for example, the first house that I bought was on the market for 185,000, but I bought it for 85,000, but I didn't have 85,000. So I found somebody who had the money, and her name was Shirley, and she gave me the 85,000. I bought the house with her money, and then I sold it 2 months later for 185,000. I now got all the money back. I gave her back 85,000 with the interest, and I kept the difference. Right? With knowledge, I paid Ying Tan the £10,000, and I leveraged his knowledge. That's why you always got to get a mentor. Right? Time, I now have employees that work for me all around the world, and I'm leveraging their time. Right? My contacts, I have a lot of contacts now. One of the reasons I was able to grow to 5 million followers across all social media platforms is because I'm leveraging a lot of my other friends who have big followings, and they'll do joint ventures with me, and I'll do joint ventures with them. One of the reasons why I like my events, I've got so many events happening around the world, is not because it's me. I'm leveraging my friends' platforms. So they'll have a big audience, and they say, John Lee's coming, and then I pull the audience with my name, and then people show up, and I give a great presentation. So you're absolutely right. There's actually, people listen to this, there's a really good piece of software called Strategizer. Strategizer breaks things into different points. Who are your key resources? Who are your points? What are your resources? Who are your top level management? It breaks everything down. You can literally fit it on one piece of paper. You can literally put it into a piece of paper, right? And it'll fit in. And you can have everything literally in one page and go, right, okay, I don't want to do anything. Who's going to do it for me? But that's not to say that we don't work hard. What you're talking about there is working smart. Mm-hmm. But we want to work smart and hard at the same time, because then no one can compete with you.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, I mean, I like to be the pace car in my own organization and show people what hard work looks like, but I just want to get more out than I put in.
Yeah.
And that's leverage. Well, John, I feel like we could talk for hours. We haven't even gotten into a lot of probably our shared experiences, but I know you have a call at the top of the hour. I actually have a sales meeting at the top of the hour with my team. So how do people, I want to give you all the room you need to tell people how they can follow you, how they can learn from you, how they can become a part of your world. You're amazing. I want to become a part of your world. So tell me too, what do you want people to know to take away?
Well, if people want to find me on social media, just type in John Lee and you'll see the one with the blue tick. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. So they can look for me on there. Okay. But if people listen to this and think, you know what, I really want to try something. We've created a program called the Digital Entrepreneur Mentoring Program. And if people want to join that, they can go to digitalentrepreneur.mentoring.com. Okay. And it's got all the information on there. And we've made it extremely affordable for people to get in. And it's literally, there is no other business that you can get into for this investment. I'm telling you, there's and what we give, you get training every single week from my team on different strategies. You get software to be able to build everything out. You get a private community where people can connect together. You get a live event where we actually meet face to face, and it's so affordable for people that want to start out. And so my biggest advice to people is you got to invest some skin in the game, because when people pay, they pay attention. I put a lot of stuff out there for free, and if people don't want to pay, then they can just look my stuff for free. There's a lot of stuff out there. I put a little ton of content out there. But if people want hand-holding guidance, they want that direction, then I'd highly recommend that they enroll into the Digital Entrepreneur Mentoring Program.
Awesome. DigitalEntrepreneurMentoring.com?
Correct.
Okay, cool. And we'll get all those links and any other links from you, and obviously post them around the content. This will be on YouTube and all the podcast networks. John, I appreciate your time, man. I've really enjoyed this.
Awesome. And thank you so much for having me. And, keep spreading the love, keep spreading the message. And, I love the work that you're doing to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs.
Hey, thanks, man. I sure will.
Thanks, Jeff. See you
Yeah.
later. Have a great day.